Hey everybody, and welcome back. Alright, today and the rest of the week we are going to work on the exhaust system. If you're wondering why I'm sitting over here, I just thought I'd like a change. So you can see the stable here, all bar Jensen's bike of course, but I still have the blue room, because in the paint booth there is the C15, which is blue and chrome, and the Nortaha, which you remember is blue and silver. Actually, I must get this one and the C15 sold. Actually, the C15, I've had slightly second thoughts about it. Do you know, the more I think about it, I wish I'd just made it so that it looked like the Trials bike, kept the original footrest positions and kickstart. That Trials kickstart is a bit of a bugger. I mean, you saw that I had to actually make the footrest fold, and the whole point of that J-shaped kickstart was that it went under the footrest, you didn't have to fold it. But either the people who rode them had tiny feet or whatever, but I couldn't kickstart it without jamming my foot under, so I made the footrest flip up. But also, it's there's so little swing to it that I find it difficult to start it, so I've just been playing around actually with an original kickstart, and I think I can leave the footrests where they are, and if you just fold that right hand side one up, the standard kickstart really comes out, and I think it'll swing and miss and just give you a better kick. But anyway, that's totally beside the point. As I say, just thought I'd show you this, and now I suppose we can get on with actually doing the exhaust pipe and silencer. Right? Right, before we start, I thought I'd show you these just in case you're interested. These are 1.5" and they're all mandrel bent, and you can get them in 90s, and actually that's see, they're the same, they don't look it, that's a long 90, that's a short 90, and 45s, and again you can get them in long 45s or short 45s. You can get them in J bends, which are like this. They've got one long and they're 90 degrees. They're 180 degrees rather. You can get 180s as well. This I just saw in the catalogue and I thought, wow, that looks just like a swept back, like a Gold Star pattern swept back. So I got one just out of interest to see what it was like. I mean, it's a beautiful bend. So, you know, I've always got projects in mind, and that might come in handy for one. And then you can also, of course, get long straight bits. So the thing that tickles me about these bends is I get them from a company in Oregon, which is over a long way west of here, but they come from the company's based in a town called Bend, Oregon. I don't know if he went there specifically for that, or it just so happens that he decided to set up a company doing these mandrel bends and he lived there, but there you go. The bends are from Bend, Oregon. Alright, last thing I want to mention is over the years I have had comments about things, and what brought it to mind, I'm waffling again, was the thing with the wheels, because a couple of people said, oh, just on the, you know, on the edge of the picture it looked as if the forks were this, that and the other. I don't use a GoPro camera because that is such an incredibly wide angle lens which gives you a big depth of field, i.e. a lot of what you look at from front to back is in focus. But you know, if you looked at this longish piece, it would look as if it had a bend in it. I don't use a really wide angle lens on the Nikon, but again, to get the depth of field and fit a lot in, I do use a wide-ish one, right? So it's often at 24 degrees, and that tends to make things on the edges, as things get away from the center, they tend to curve. So a lot of what you see is an optical illusion. All right, let's see what we can do with these bends. So what we're going to do here, now as I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, I was half thinking about cutting this off, but you know, it really is the architecture of an Enfield engine, so it would have been terrible of me to do that. I apologise for even thinking about it. Anyway, I put the timing, the oil pump cover, timing cover, whatever you want to call it, on so we know where this has got to go. Now, the standard pipe, which I got when I bought the engines and I put on my other Enfield, is a huge curve. It comes right out here, right down, and then goes up there. I mean, this is enormous. So we're going to tidy that up a bit and make it a little neater, a little closer in. So these are just a push fit in there. Goes in just over 3/4 of an inch, 13/16. And as I say, it is 1.5 inches, so I felt just lucky. So the first question is, do we need to put a straight piece in to go in there? So as I say, the long ones are straight-ish. What did I say it was? 13/16. So the question is, yes, look, that'll just go in on that straight piece. Yep, that's up against the stop. So that'll go in there like thus. Is that in there? Yeah, I think that's in. Actually, what I might do is make a little copper washer or a little, see if I can find some sort of high temp O-ring or something just to squish up in there. So what do we need next? Is it 90s, 45s? What I've decided to do is I've kept the welder over here. Oh, look at that. Oh, now these bends, which maybe I didn't get them from the same place, are made in China. 304 stainless, made in China. Why is that slightly like that? Let's get a straight piece and see if that wobbles. Yeah, that wobbles, so it's the back. Let's see if I can find some sort of very high temp O-ring to put in there. What was I saying? Oh yes, what I'm going to do is we're going to weld these in situ. When I put the piece up, I'm going to spot weld it. Right, I can set the weld at a spot, which is very nice. That way I can just hold it. I don't have to mess around with marks and all sorts of things. But I'm going to, rather than just say put 4 spots on, I'm going to put a load of spots on to really hold it. And then for these, I'm not going to weld them with a bead to sand off and polish. We're going to make them look very competition-y, and I'm just going to do an autogenous weld. I'm not going to use any filler rod. I'm just going to melt the 2 edges, weld the 2 edges together. So you'll see the nice, hopefully if I do it right, you'll see the nice little ripples of TIG welding. I'll set the TIG weld at a pulse, which is when you put the pedal down, instead of it just giving you the arc, it goes on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And you can set the amount of time it's on and off. So for the autogenous weld, it'll make the puddle. It'll go puddle, puddle, as I'm moving, puddle, puddle, puddle. That'll give us the nice look. So, now then, the problem here is going to be, yeah, you can see it all, that I've got less space here than I had on the other bike, and also because we made this thinner, I don't have as much space in there. On the other bike we've got a nice long silencer and it goes round there. Don't know if we'll be able to do that because I want to keep it away from the carb. See, I'd like to have it down here, away from the carb. But getting that, I could go into the top sort of thing, but then we start to get into that problem of, oh yeah, we could build it all, and then when we come to take it off, we find we can't, you know, if I made that to go in the top, the pipe would have to come out top-wise. Well, it couldn't because it's in there. And if this is all closely fitted in, you say, well, just take the exhaust, the silencer off. Well, if the silencer's up close to here, I can't get the silencer back either. I would have to be able to take it off sort of all in one. and then take the silencer off. So there's quite a few things to think about when we get round to that. But let's look at this first of all. That looks pretty good. That's pointing it up here. How much is it pointing it? Yeah, that'll be good. So let me get these first two cleaned up, and then we'll spot them together. Right, I've put a gasket in here, put this cover on so we know where this is going to go, but I'm pretty sure that's the wrong stud they've got in there, because it barely comes through here. Okay, so I might just stick a bit of tape on that. We can always put an extra washer in here, so when we tighten that down we get that to stop there, or even pointing down. Right, giving that a quick rub on the wire wheel, and I'm going to use a short 90. Excuse me. Let's just push this tungsten in a little bit. I had it sticking out to fit it into a gap. Alright, so as I say, I've got this set to the spot function, so it takes away the guesswork of how long to hold it on. Just put one spot on to hold it. So you just push the pedal all the way down and hold it there, and it switches it on and switches it off. And that's going to pull away a little bit, but that's all right. We just need to know. Doesn't want to be there. See, that's got to come. Oh, actually, that probably is it. Okay, as I say, see that's pulled that. So I've got to press that up there and do my other spot. So let me do that. Now I actually broke that joint and redid it because I found it was out here too much. So now it's tacked in about 8 places. I started to explain this, then I didn't finish off. When I did the other ones, I did them one joint at a time. And there was more constraint because this stainless tube distorts like you wouldn't believe. So what I'm going to do this time is put a lot of tacks on so that it can't really move, and then when I've got it all together I can back flush it rather than using the that white flux, which actually works very well. Now this comes in a lot closer to the engine. I just got to make it go to the top. So what we need next is a straight piece. So let me measure that and cut it. So hang on, let's think about this. We need a straight piece, and then what do we want? Do we want a 45? Don't forget, we've got to keep this in from our leg. We've got to keep it away from the carb. That's going to have to be like that. Or do we? Huh, this one's made in Thailand. Alright, I have to switch you off while I think. I've cut a piece for there, and I'm going to put a 45 on this end. That'll keep it nice and closely in. Now because this is completely round, so there's no sort of fitment there, I'm going to tack this on there first of all, and then I can get it to where I want here and tack it. So let me do that. So it's going to go on there. I'm not only going to have it bending down, I'm going to have it bending in, I think, like that. Because we're getting close to sort of where my knee is, so the last thing I want is something out here. I'm trying to keep it all within that. Now I might have to make some, I might even make that go across into a silencer on the other side, because again, don't forget, we don't need an oil tank. So I have all this space in here to play with. So I'm going to make it go down that way and curve across into a silencer on the other side. How would another 45 look? That's a 90. But I had two 45s. That's a 90. That's 90, 90, 90, 90. Do another 45. See, we don't want that to go up like that. So anyway, that is going to go on there. See, that's against that. I've got to keep it clearer there. That thing's not going to be but a problem. Okay, let me get my gear on and tack this. So that's about it. It's in tighter, it goes close in. That, excuse me, that clears everything there. I don't know if I I've only got one tack in here. I don't know if I shorten that a little bit. I'll bring that. As you kind of gathered over the years, there's a lot of standing around looking when you're making one-off things. See, if I shorten that, yes, it brings it down, but it also brings this here. So it takes my curve. It's not going to drop my curve over that. The only way I could do that would be to drop the pipe. Now, I could take this off and put that at a slight angle. I don't think you'd notice it, and that would bring it down. I might do that. Can't let that down like that. It's touching on that and it's not tight in there. So that's a thought. Just very slight angle there. I don't think you'd notice it. Well, slight angle that way down. Drop that down a little bit. Well, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, let me give this some more thought. Well, I had one quick little thought, and that is that if I put a piece in here to extend that down, you know, maybe ½ an inch, that would drop the whole thing. Just cut through that joint. Tacked it up too much, didn't I? I should have just left these with a couple of tacks in first. That one's alright, because as I say, it's a straight tube, it doesn't matter. I can just swivel that round whichever way I wanted. But yeah, I could cut through that, put about ½ inch in. But that's a lot more work than just putting a little pie cut there and dropping that down. Right, well, I kept looking at this and I finally decided I didn't like the big gap there. So I was going to cut a piece and fit it in here, and then I suddenly realised that I'd used a short 90 in there, and when I measured, I wanted to drop this about ½ an inch. They're about ½ an inch longer each side, so I just cut that one out, put the long one in. A bit of a bugger here with the spot weld, so I might end up polishing out these joints. So there's with a longer one in. So now you see, it just nicely clears that. Come out a little bit like that, and I've slightly got it kicked back a bit so it'll go into the silencer here. So I think what I might have to do is make a tiny little pie one for in here, just to level this off. Although, see, I don't want it too near the carburetor. Hang on, let me put my glasses down. Silencer on the other one goes here. The outside of it is just on this edge of the gearbox, which tucks it in nicely. So what I have to do, as I say, at this end I can't get that in. I'm going to have to make this oblong. So what I think I'm going to do at this end with the silencer is it's going to have an alloy pipe down the centre. I'm going to squeeze this up, make it oblong, so it'll obviously be the same surface area as that, but it'll fit in there, and then I'll have to make a little piece to twizzle round, or I can just make a long piece to come out where you can't see what I'm talking about. So anyway, as I say, I might need to put, see if I want that to be straight like that. Hang on a second. There, I've moved you around a little bit as well. So the silencer on the other Enfield is 8 inches long. There's 8 inches. Right, so we have a pipe to go in. We've got to have enough pipe, say 1 inch there. So that's and it's 4 inches tall. And as I say, it's got to go in here. So 4 inches tall. I want it to be below the level of the carb. So 1.5 inch tube going in. That means we're going to have 1.5 inches above, 1.5 inch tube going in, 1.5 inches of 4 is 2.5. That's 1.25 inches more than wherever the pipe is. So 1.25, 1.5. Am I right? Come on. 1.5 of 4 is 2.5. Half of 2.5 is 1.25. Yeah, I am right. I think what I'll have to do here, actually, before we go any further, is make up a little cardboard tubey thing to show the actual, in 3 dimension, the way the silencer is going to go. Because don't forget, I've got to get a filter on this. Now because all this is so much lower as well, I can't put a pod filter on or it just sticks out here where my leg's going to be. So I want to make a filter box, or at least put the filter under here, which means I've got to bring this, it's a pity it doesn't point the other way, I've got to bring this up and round into there. So I don't want the silencer, I really want to keep the silencer down here. That's why I've got that curve down. The one on the other bike just goes straight. I want to keep it tucked in and down a bit. I mean, I don't have to make it the same shape. But anyway, let me make a body out of cardboard so we can actually see where things go. So because I was thinking it might not necessarily be the same shape as the other one. I mean, we're trying to look Enfieldy, but we have to compromise. Before I made an actual model, we'd just try see what's what. So if we're going to have this come down, we've got to be clear of that. I'm not worried about taking it out, but no, hang on, I'm going to have to say hold on again, aren't I? There, I put the filler cap on so we know where it is. Now of course I can always shape this to miss that, but if I want it to be below the carb, see, it's going to be in there. If I want it to be below the carb, it can't be any higher than that. That's going down, that's going to go in sort of like that. We don't want it to go any further back than, see, I can even make this follow that a little bit. Tube's going to go in, right, and we'll have it bend and go along like that and go out the other end. Then this will have its usual holes in. I might experiment this time, put some packing in and make an end that comes off, although making an end that come off at this end would be difficult with it being square, unless I squish it inside here and it comes out square, then I can slide the end off. And there's a thought. Alright, so the silencer is going to have to be see, if I make the silencer here look like that, see, what I also want here is I want it to have a gap here so that I can sort of, when it's loose, I can pull the pipe off it or drop this down and get the pipe off. I could take the tailpipe across and out there. Of course, we've got the curve of the mudguard. Bump, 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 bump. Sitting and thinking, that's what we've got to do. Well, that would be right out the way if I cut that like that. Let me tidy this up a little bit so that I can cut it actually to shape. Right then. So there's a bit mock-up. This is 6 1/4 inches long. I'll make it a bit longer than that. This, oh, hang on. Right, we'll try again. I meant to fasten it out the way before. When I've got a 90 degree thing here, it's actually coming out that way. So once I've got a 90 degree, you know what I'm talking about. Once this has got a 90 degree on it, it'll run lower. So don't worry about it. What am I doing? Oh yeah, I've moved it over here so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we could put that in there. We could be a shade longer, or you know, in this way I could make it longer, so this, get it up towards the 8 inches. Or, see, I've been thinking, you know, I've pointed it down that way, I could take it over that side, although then the because I've got to come up and clear the chain, that maybe might be in the way. No, I mean, this is completely flexible. But I was half thinking, how about something like they have on the Armac Cubs, that actually has a small box here, because the frame tube is there, it has a small box, and then coming out the end of the box is another tube that goes through here to a secondary box. Or shall I take it down and over the other side? But as I say, that might be a problem with that. I mean, I could take it across there like that. Getting a bit complicated and a bit long. I could do that with it. Or use just a little bit of that and a little straight piece, because what I need to do, you see, is to have a straight piece for our joint, because part of the pipe has got to slip into part of this. So if that was, see, that's at a little bit of an angle. Difficult to show you this without getting in the way. And of course, that doesn't have to be level. I could make that slope downwards. But no matter where I take it, it's going to have to be squared off here, because I've only got about 1.25 inches between this tube and the tyre. But that's alright, if it's just a tailpipe, doesn't matter. I might have to knock off doing this. I find if I get stumped with something that I just keep thinking about and nothing happens. Whereas if I go off and do something else, I can often come back and think, oh, I know what I'll do. So maybe we'll make this exhaust and induction over this week and probably the next week. How about induction? Let's give that some thought just as a break. Right, I've got a couple of things I wanted to explain about this. Let me get a light in here. So the first thing is, this is a 26mm carb. Choke in there is 26mm. So that's a very small fraction over 1 inch, which is about right, because I think they had 1 inch or 1 1/8 inch carb, something like that. But the bell mouth is 2 inches. And the holes for the air passages, pilot jet, that one's the enrichment system, are right. Well, you could turn it back a bit, but the thing is, whatever I make, it's got to go on there like that. But as I say, it's only a 1 inch choke, so from the air box to pass enough air, we only need 1 inch and a quarter, something like that, to get to it. So I was thinking first of all about rubber bends. Now let me move this light and open you out a bit. Right, I was thinking about rubber bends, but 2 inches means really large bends. And what I sort of want is, you know, when I see even a 2 inch piece coming out here. So then I got thinking to myself, wait a minute, if I only need to be feeding this through just over a 1 inch tube, I've got some 2 inch solid round. Why don't I make a tapered piece for here? So this bit here is 3/8. So a nice 5/16 Jubilee clip will go on there. So the actual 2 inch diameter only needs to be about 3/8 again. Then we'll have a piece of rubber hose connecting them, and 2 Jubilee clips. So from only just out here, I could start to taper. could I again make it? Ooh, you know it. One thing leads to another. It really does. You make it nice and narrow. See, the silencer's going to be out here, isn't it? You know, whatever happens, the silencer's going to be sort of here. And I got the gearbox here, so I can't get my leg in too close, but you really do get your leg in close up here. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I could make a tapered piece and then go to a smaller piece, which I could make it 1.5 inches. See what I mean? Round there into an air box. It would only be that big. And that's still a lot bigger than the choke. So I make a tapered piece, and the tapered piece would miss this. I mean, it just about misses it. That's pressed up. See, that's not quite flat. That's at a slight angle. So I can't come straight in at this, except with a piece of rubber, which would distort in the middle. So I make my piece 2 inches diameter for 3/8, and then taper down and then disappear under there, and then make a nice air box in there. Or I could make a 2-inch piece that comes out a bit further and actually go off there. Hang on, I'll show you a drawing. See, I make it like a periscope. So this is the 2-inch piece, and it comes out, and then it's literally got a box piece that comes down and then goes to round at the bottom. And that would go, I could make that go over there, down and over there, and to there. This is another one that's just going to, I think, take a day of looking at. So that isn't getting me any further forward, is it? Exhaust or induction? Alright, let me think. Right, so I just made this. I suppose I should have filmed it, but I could have done with being slightly longer as well. It's 2-inch here. I've got it tapered a little bit, and that's to give me into there. Goes down to 1.5 inches. This here is 1 and an eighth, which is going to make it about 29 millimeters. So that will go on there with a piece of rubber tube. And then I happen to have an alloy bent, which I was going to use in the silencer, so I'll have to get another one. That is going to weld onto there. And that isn't much of a stick out, is it? And that goes right into there, and we'll make up an air box to suit. Alright. It's going to go in there like that. So let me go and tack this on, and we'll see how that looks. Right, I welded it on. 90% good weld. I just went a bit squiffy at the end. That is going to go on there. On the rubber, like that. That's missing everything, so we'll cut this to suit and make a nice little box to go in here behind the mudguard. Holes up under here for the air to get in, so there's no chance of water, because it'll be the mudguard. There'll be seat pan, so we'll have a nice big hole, foam. Airbox doesn't have to be big. And I think that is neatly out of the way. Can't remember where I bought this alloy bend. I've got to get some more alloy tube now, and maybe another bend. Okay, that solves that problem, I think. couple of brackets on the frame for the air box. Not a bad day's work, not considering the amount of thinking that went into it. Alright, see you tomorrow. Right then, so it's turned into one of those days. A rubber tube came and a couple of other things I ordered. They came this afternoon. Of course, as you can see, got the boxes. I have all these boxes of different size hose clips. I only had one of the size of the 2-inch to do this. So, and the place that I get them from, of course, is the place I just ordered this rubber tubing from yesterday. So I could have ordered some more. So while I was waiting for this to come, and I ordered some alloy tube to do the silencer with and stuff like that. Although I did forget to order the 1/2-inch tube to make the front mudguard stays with. I thought I'd do the front wheel because I bought a brand new disc and a 4-pot caliper, which I'm putting on the B50 because the forks are identical. And then the nice disc and the 2-pot caliper off that I'm going to put on this. So take the B50 apart, put the caliper on fine, go to put the disc on, it's thinner. In fact, it said minimum 3mm on the disc and the disc was 2.9. Well, they sit in little cups because it's a floating disc. The disc is naturally bolted on, sit in little cups, and the cups are deeper. The disc that came off was 4mm, so stumped there. So I come here, take this wheel out, can I get the disc off? Tried everything for the bolts, releasing fluid, heated them up. In the end they just rammed it off the Allen bolts. So I drilled the heads off, 6 of them. Took the disc off and what do I find? Some dimwit had put the bolts in with green Loctite. I mean, good God, that's for sticking ships together with. So now I'm having to drill them all out. I don't know whether to drill right through, put bolts through, drill them and helicoil them or what. So, alright, that's my little moan. Let's look at this a little closer. Right, so I've done this bit, but I am stopping here. Okay, as I say, I've got my piece of hose on, so that's now on there firmly. As you can see, it goes on nicely. When I make this box, I think I want it to... I put a mudguard in so I can see how much space I've got, and I don't have very much. I had a round filter that I thought might fit in there. That was too big. An oblong one was too big. It's actually, the oblong one might go in if I do it straight up and down. I've got to look at that. But anyway, I'm going to want the box, I think, I don't want it to be square or even rounded. I want it to match up with the curve of this. So when it comes onto there, however big it is, it'll follow that. So of course I can't do that until I got the mudguard. And the alloy mudguard hasn't arrived yet. So we'll stop with that and we'll come to the exhaust. We'll come back to the exhaust and see what we can do there. I've almost finished doing the exhaust. That's the autogenous joint. It looks alright, but I still prefer that and that. There's 2 joints there that are sanded out and polished out. I haven't finished polishing it, there's still some marks in. But I'm going to put a little bit extra weld on there so I can sand it back and polish it up. Alright. Right, so there it is on the bike. Still needs a little more polishing, I can still see. It's amazing when you're polishing, particularly stainless steel. You think you've got a spot on it and you look and you just move in the light and you can see scratch marks from the sanding. Alright, so that's like that. The next thing I'm going to do, in my little box of goodies from McMaster was some stainless steel 1-inch wide strip, 1/8 inch. So we're going to make a bracket. I guess we're going to make it from here to there. I say we'll make it out of stainless steel. It'll all match up, stainless steel welded. I'll put a little bit of masking tape on here just to tighten it up so that I know where it is. And I want this in because I don't want it to possibly flop about while I'm trying to make the back piece for the silencer, and I think I've more or less decided how I'm going to do that. So let's get some of the stainless steel flat out, and we'll make a piece. Of course, it means I'm probably going to need to get a longer bolt again for there, because I never thought of that. There's another 1/8 inch. It won't quite fit on. I won't get a full nut on, I don't think, but that's minor. In fact, I've got some longer 5/16 bolts. So let's do that. As usual, we start with a bit of cardboard. We're going to make it a little long. I'm going to have a piece on the end so it'll slightly wrap round, so it's not just the end going to it. It'll have a little piece, make it much stronger, because it's going to vibrate a bit. Alright, so got some 1 inch wide 304 stainless. Let me go and cut a piece of that. Right, so there it is, all bent up, welded on, all nice and solid. And amazingly, look, I'm back to having a big gap there. And yet I actually stuck a piece in there, taped it on to make sure I kept a gap. But any road up, it'll do. And that took absolutely forever to do. A lot of walking backwards and forwards, little bends. Bent too much, not enough. So anyway, there it is. Oh, hang on. I also ground that weld off, polished it up a little bit, and when we've got the proper size clip here, that won't be overhanging, so that looks a lot nicer. So between the two of them, hang on, doesn't look too bad, does it? Let's see, it's taking forever. So I am going to go and enjoy myself on the Enfield, because it's a nice day. So this is Thursday late on. I won't be in the workshop tomorrow. Might do a bit on Saturday, I don't know. So I'll see you then. Alright, Saturday morning. Yesterday afternoon the mudguard came. Now as you can see, it's actually like it was with the C15. I got it from the same place. It is long. So what we're going to do is I'll look at a couple of the other bikes and I'll find out how far out here I want it. Then we'll mark it, and because this is a same curve all the way around, I mean this would be one huge circle, just measuring from there to there across the curve will be fine. I'll measure across the curve from there to there and cut that much off that end to bring it round. Then we'll see about making a bracket for up there. So let me do that. Right, so done that. Actually, that's still a little long because most of them came up just at the end of the mudguard, at the end of the wheel, the tyre there. But that actually, that will be going, excuse me, up there like that. Yeah, that's fine. Funnily enough, all three bikes, the Triumph Otter, the other Enfield and Jensen's BSA are all slightly different, but they only vary from about there to there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is find a centre point on the frame here, mark a centre point up here on the mudguard and down here on the mudguard, so we can make a little bracket there. And we can make a double bracket, you know, 2 bolts here, so that it won't wobble on just one. So let me go and draw some lines. Right then, so there's centre line taken from the centre of the tyre. Don't worry about that little bit there. This is the exact centre line here. So I've got this just jammed up where it should be. Get the centre line there marked up. Centre line, centre line. I've got a mark on the other end as well. So, as usual, first thing was a cardboard template. And now we've got a metal one which follows that curve, and it's curved a little like that. And again, centre's marked on that. That's going to go on there like thus. So what I'm going to do, as you know I like to have things fixed while I'm welding them, is I'm going to mark the holes, drill it, and then I can bolt it to the mudguard, or at least put a couple of bolts through just to hold it in place. And then we can put a bit of bronze on, then take the mudguard out the way and do it completely. And do it from underneath when the frame is stripped down. So, let's check again. Everything is centered there. Everything is centered there. Right, so let me drill a couple of holes and then I'll set up to bronze it. And there's that bronzed on, a couple of bolts in, so that's all good and tight. So I've got to make a small elbow bracket for the other end, and then, hang on, so this is why I wanted the mudguard in, so I could see how much space I had for this. Now there's not a lot of space, but I could put a filter on the top that's going to be 3 inches by 3 inches, a triangle, which is about 4.5 square inches, and the choke area is about 1.2 square inches. So we've got masses of space there to suck in, and all this needs to be then is a little box. So that'll be fine. And then the same with this, so I can see how far now I can come with the mudguard, with the silencer, and where I'm going to have to end up cutting that. And I've got to cut it across for the chain at the other side. So I've drilled a hole in here. I've got to make up a little knee bracket, simplest little bracket to go in there. So let me do that, and then that's going to be it for this week for sure. And there's the bottom bracket on. Okay, so hold on. So there's the rear mudguard on. All nice and solid. So for next week we'll hopefully finish off the induction and exhaust. And until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.